Hey there, you guys. This is Christian back with another video. So Nintendo just dropped a demo for Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Last Demon. So I decided to check it out, give my couple of my early impressions and just my thoughts on this game. But before we get into that, do me a favor, you guys. If you like the video, do me a favor and like the video. Consider subscribing if you want. And with that, let's get into the video. We saw our first look of Bayonetta Origins back at last year's Game Awards, and then it was also featured in the Nintendo Direct. This game caught my eye just because the art style was very different from a traditional Bayonetta game. And I haven't played Bayonetta 3, but I played Bayonetta 1 and 2. I love those games. So I was very interested in seeing what different things they're going to take this franchise with. I think it is a smart decision to try to break out and see what other game styles Bayonetta could fit into. But the more I started thinking about it, I was kind of curious as to who this game is for. Just because I don't think a Bayonetta fan, like a hardcore Bayonetta fan, is going to be really interested in this type of game and this art style. And I feel like a fan who's going to hop into this game isn't going to be a fan of the traditional Bayonetta style action games. But all in all, as a game, I was very impressed. As just a whole individual game, I did like it. From the art style to the sound to the voice acting, it's all phenomenal. The gameplay is very interesting. It's very reminiscent of, like, let's say Astro Chain, where you control two characters at the same time, which Platinum does do really well. And it definitely fits the style of game that they're going for here. So the art style is a very eye-catching, colorful storybook style aesthetic, and it definitely, again, it fits what they're going for here. So they're trying to tell a prequel or an origin story of Bayonetta, pretty much through like a kid's storybook style, where there's a reader who's like narrating the story to you, and then they kind of do like different voices for the different characters. So like, for example, Cheshire the Demon, whenever Cheshire speaks, the narrator reads it as if they're reading it in a monster voice to a kid, which, I mean, it's a smart choice. I get why they're doing it. It fits the aesthetic, but I kind of wanted to hear the demon talk, not really this childish lady speak it to me with a little monster voice. But all in all, I get the decision, and it definitely fits. It was a little off-putting for me. I feel like this game is definitely going with a different approach than Bayonetta is, where I feel like the original Bayonetta games are going for very high-octane gameplay, and that's the driving factor as to why people play those games. It's not really the story. The story is kind of just a vessel to let the player play out the gameplay, and the story is just there because they need a story. And it's very off the wall. It's very crazy and a little over the top. Versus I feel like this is going to be like a little bit more dialed back, a little bit more lore focus, just to give like more backstory to Bayonetta, and that's cool. And the story's good for what I got into, but it definitely wasn't, I guess, what I want from a Bayonetta game. And I don't think the story was anything crazy to write home to, which I'm kind of concerned about, because if the story doesn't pick up, then I don't see how that's going to be a reason for people to continue playing this game too much. But yeah, so far the story is, due to the way that Cereza was born and to who her parents were, she's been outcasted by her village of witches, and then she's been pretty much tutored by her teacher and raised by her teacher. And then she kind of wants to go back and free her mother from jail. In order to do so, she was pretty much promised this power that lurks somewhere inside this forest, so then she ventures off into this forest. Some stuff happens. She ends up trying to summon a demon. Things go wrong. It ends up taking possession of her doll, Cheshire, and that's why we call the demon Cheshire. It's pretty much this evil doll, or this doll that she walks around with is being possessed by the demon. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a stark contrast to what the over-the-top and crazy stories you get from Bayonetta. But I do think it's going to be a more character-driven story, which is cool. I do like the characters. And then one big kudos I want to give out to is the voice acting is phenomenal. It's definitely top tier. Some of the best voice acting I've heard in the game in a long time. And I want to give another shout out to the composer. The music in this game is so like fitting. It has this very mystical, fantastical sound to it that definitely feels like something out of like a more whimsical Disney movie or like a kid's storybook tale. But yeah, it's all very fitting, and I think that's one of the biggest things about this game that stood out to me was that it felt like the developers at Platinum, they had a vision in mind, and they definitely went full force and developed that to the best of their abilities, and it definitely shows really, really well. So again, as just a standalone game separate from Bayonetta, is definitely a very good one. But yeah, as far as gameplay goes, it definitely draws a lot of inspiration from what Platinum did with Astro Change as far as controlling two characters at the same time. So you walk around as Cereza with the left stick, and then the left trigger does all the magic and abilities and stuff like that with Cereza. And then the right stick moves Cheshire, and then you can use the right triggers to do slashes, etc. Whenever you do magic on like plants, I don't know if it's gonna be other stuff, but for the demo it was just magic on plants, where you kind of just do this rhythm game, like you move the analog stick to the right direction based off the beat. They have the option to use manual or automatic for this. If you're not really good with hitting things to a rhythm, then you can just use automatic. But for me, it was really satisfying to just hit it at the right time, and it felt like really good for me, and that was one of my favorite parts of this. I feel like this game plays very much like a puzzle adventure game, so you kind of have to figure out how to navigate places and get both Cereza and Cheshire across specific areas. So Cereza can summon Cheshire out from the doll anytime she needs him to, and then you kind of go back and forth between doll and demon based off of whatever you need to get across with. So as a doll, you can throw the doll out and become kind of stretchy, and you kind of do like Minish Cap style in Legend of Zelda, where you can just kind of like pull it and then flip across platforms, and it's really cool. That was really fun. And then when you have to navigate through like Rosemary's or like specific areas where the demon can't walk through, then you have to separate and then kind of figure out ways to get both characters across. I feel like the combat is where it's going to differentiate the most from Bayonetta, and I feel like this is where most of the fans are either going to love it or not like this one, just because it is very different, very unique. So Cereza herself can't actually really fight, she can just defend. So her magic ability is like these little thorns that can hold people in place. So you kind of just like dodge, or not even dodge, you kind of just avoid hits and then hold the enemies in place so they don't hit you. And then Cheshire is the one that does all the heavy lifting as far as battling and combat goes. So Cheshire can deal a lot of damage and slash, etc. What I thought was interesting is that Cereza is the only one who actually has a vitality bar. So it's like these little flower petals that like acts as your life or HP. And Cheshire doesn't have any actual life or stats, so he can just tank hits, and it's not really that big a deal. So I thought that was a very interesting idea, instead of opposed to having like two different life bars or them having a shared bar. So I thought that was really good. That way you're only worrying about protecting Cereza and not so much protecting Cheshire, and Cheshire's kind of just like deal damage as best you can and kind of as fast as you can. But yeah, unfortunately, as far as I can see, as far as the demo gave us, there's no really combos like there is in Bayonetta, so that kind of I kind of like the combos in Bayonetta. It definitely makes it feel more satisfying and more fun to just deal damage. But this was a unique take, and I did like it. Again, as a side game, I'm fine with this. I like it. I'm definitely going to be picking it up. I think the pricing is going to be a hit or miss for some people. So this is going to be a full price game, which is interesting because Bayonetta 3 is also a full price game. So you're kind of saying that this side game is to equal value of Bayonetta 3. So I don't know. I feel like Nintendo's been a little weird with prices lately, like with Metroid Prime being $40, but then other remasters have been $60. This one, again, it's a side game to Bayonetta, but it's a full price game with the mainline game. So is this going to be of equal value to them? Do they see this as equal value? Is the community of Bayonetta going to see this as equal value to Bayonetta 3? I don't know. I just think it's a very interesting pricing point. I feel like this probably would have been better at a $40 pricing point. But it's still a really good game, especially as like a standalone game. If you separate it from Bayonetta, it is a really fun game, and I did like it a lot. I definitely look forward to playing more of this. One other thing that kind of upset me about the demo was there was no boss fight at the end of it. So I don't know if there's bosses in this game or if it's just navigate through the levels, and the puzzle solving is kind of the main draw of this game. But with all that being said, these are my final thoughts on Bayonetta Origins, Cereza and the Lost Demon. Let me know if you guys are going to be checking this out, if you guys are interested. If you're a Bayonetta fan, let me know if you're interested in this game or is this just a miss for you. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.